We are really excited to be with you today. I have a whole team of people here from our Unite team and our Students for Dignity team. Those of you that are here with our team, will you just wave or stand up so you can see? We brought a whole delegation, mostly from Utah, but also from California. Let's do, yeah. We're going to start with the older, and then we're going to work down to the rising generation. They will tell you really where everything's at. I want to just summarize quickly the message I hope you'll get today. I usually work into this, but this is so important. We've experienced some things in the last few days that make me want to emphasize this even more to you. We believe that our divisions are not caused by disagreement, that we think differently on policy. We believe that our division is caused by the contempt that we hold for people who think differently than we do. We believe that we all use contempt to some degree. But when we use it, it's hard to see it. And when we see it, it's hard to use it after that. I'm hoping that today you will start to see the language of contempt so that when you use it, it becomes hard to use. And sometimes they'll say, sorry, not sorry. You'll never see this language the same again. So that's the message I hope that you get from us today. You'll hear it again in the presentation. It's because it's so important to us. And people that have gone through our extended training will come back to us and say, here's the lesson I learned. I use contempt. I see it in others quickly. It was hard to see in myself. So we're going to show you a little trick, some tricks to see that. And hopefully we'll be friends in the end. And when I see you, you'll hold me accountable and you'll start to see some of this in yourself. So I had to open up an old PowerPoint here because we had a little snafu with our technology. I'm going to start by introducing you to my son. This is my oldest son, Nate. He is a musician. And when I was in the governor's office, I was the governor's education policy advisor for 7 years, the last 7 years of Governor Gary Herbert's term in Utah. And as his education advisor, I would often get contacted by students, have projects or art fairs or whatever. And I was contacted once by this young group of students who were learning to become entrepreneurs. And they were holding a fair over the weekend, raising money. This group said that if you send us a photo, we will draw a portrait for you. And it was like $6. It was a bargain, right? Okay. So I sent them this picture of my son because I've always liked it so much. So photo in hand, $6. This is what I got back. It's adorable, right? I love this. The blue beard. My son loved this so much that he put this in his music studio. And it's always interesting when we see ourselves through someone else's eyes, especially young children's eyes. So he loved it so much. Again, he put this in his studio. I loved it so much, I wanted him to do me. So I picked this picture of my husband and I think this was at a birthday celebration for me. And for $6, this is what I got back. Ouch, right. Oh, that's really sad. Sometimes the way we see ourselves is dramatically different from what other people see us as or see in us. And today you might start to see some things in yourself that you didn't see there before. I hope it's not this painful, but we will enjoy this together. I want to introduce you to the rest of my family. You've met my husband and my son. This is the Pfeiffer clan. This was taken on a road trip to Montana in 2021, the summer of 2021. We had not traveled together for some time. I've got adult children, 5 kids, 15 grandkids, and 1 on the way. This trip really could not have happened in 2020. It was COVID for one thing, but there were also other reasons. 2019 would not have happened. 2018 would have been a little sketchy. Again, it wasn't just because of COVID or because we didn't have time. It's that we were not getting along in certain areas, especially with politics. And the thought of spending 5 days together on a road trip was not at the top of anyone's bucket list. Let me tell you why. This is my oldest, from oldest to youngest. Nate is a Republican. My next daughter, Karen's an independent. Kimberly is a Democrat. Kyle is a Democratic Socialist. and Lane is a libertarian. You can't make this up. Like, who would want to make this up, right? I call this a parenting win. Because your kids grow up, right? They have their own identities. They just didn't pick the identity of their mother, who's a moderate Republican, or their father, who's a conservative Republican. They learn, they experience things for themselves. 2 of my kids campaigned for Bernie Sanders, and I've never seen them so excited about politics. 2 of them helped campaign for Barack Obama. They were so excited and engaged and hopeful about politics. I loved that. But in 2018, 19, 20, and 21, it didn't feel like anyone was winning in our family. So it came down at that time to politics. We're winning fights and we're losing America. You've seen these statistics, you've heard them before. These are our most updated version of statistics. We're stuck. Only 4% of Americans say America is working. It's scary, isn't it? More than 1 in 3 Americans have permanently broken off a key relationship due to politics. And out of those, half of those are with family members. I dare say there's probably not one person in this room who doesn't have a strained relationship in their family or know someone in your extended family who has a very strained relationship due to politics. And about 23% of Americans said they support secession. 83% say the country's not working. We're more divided than ever. In fact, maybe we should secede from the Union. So, to get right to the heart of this matter, we believe that the problem, again, is not our disagreements on policy. We believe the problem is contempt. At the beginning of my work with Unite, I had just read this book by Arthur Brooks called Love Your Enemies. And he talks about our cultural addiction to contempt, an addiction abetted by the outrage industrial complex. I used to spend like 15 minutes going over this information and telling you about the social media or the types of places that we were getting this. We all know this, right? I don't even have to explain this to anyone anymore. He said, it's tearing us apart, and if we want to solve the polarization problem, we have to solve the contempt problem. Contempt has become the language of political speech in America. I dare say with a group like Braver Angels and how politically involved you are on a lot of fundraising emails like I am. From both sides, I get them from the left and the right because I have voted for Republicans and for Democrats. And that's the language of the emails that I get. It's contempt. Amanda Ripley, who has written this beautiful book called High Conflict, and she's done a lot of research in this area of polarization. She said political speech, we know from the research, can incite violence. And in a training with my organization, she went on to say that political speech can also reduce the likelihood of violence. Think of certain moments in time when there has been the potential for a huge amount of violence, when a leader would get up and say, actually, that's not what we're about. Let's talk about this. It's just that we don't see many examples anymore of where it is decreasing the risk of violence. And we see it mainly to incite people to anger, which can lead to violence. Dr. John Gottman, who is a renowned marriage and family therapist, has written a recent book, but he has talked about contempt for many, many years. He calls it one of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Some of you are nodding your head, you've read his work, right? He calls contempt poisonous and notes that it leads to more conflict. I heard a couple of deep sighs as this started to play. It's exhausting, isn't it? We've seen it before. Contempt, it's eroding our political and public discourse, but it is also damaging our family relationships. Again, from Arthur Brooks, contempt will wreck your relationships and harm your health. I read this just recently on the Gottman's website. research shows that couples that are contemptuous of each other are more likely to suffer from infectious illnesses because of a weakened immune system. And then they go on to say, the Gottmans, that contempt is the single greatest predictor of divorce, and it must be eliminated. Those of you that have read the Gottmans' work probably remember a piece of research they do with people that eye roll, right? You've seen that before. So when he gets a new couple in for therapy and they're talking with him, he said one of the first red flags that he notices is if one partner rolls their eyes at the other one, which is a huge sign of contempt. He said it's a huge red flag, and chances are they're not going to make it. You'll never look at an eye roll the same again. Well, I almost found myself doing it last week. It's like, okay, stop. I was kind of joking, but it was like, no, just don't even do it. Don't go there. So we believe that the antidote to contempt is dignity. We don't usually hear this word in this context or think of it that way. But while I was reading Arthur Brooks, my colleagues, Tim Shriver and Tom Rostert, were reading a beautiful book by Donna Hicks called Dignity. And she notes that along with our survival instincts, the yearning to be treated with dignity is the single most powerful force motivating our behavior. Donna is an international conflict resolution specialist. She worked in Northern Ireland, in South Africa, in South America, in Asia. She worked with, warring factions. And for her to come up with the most powerful tool that she had in these interactions as dignity is really significant. She said it's the one universal truth about the human experience. We all want to be treated with dignity. She went on to say, if you violate someone's dignity repeatedly, you'll get a war or a divorce or a revolution, because a desire for revenge is an instant response to a dignity violation. Think about it for just a moment in the political context. When someone insults you because of your party or your vote, or insults your candidate that you support, often that immediate response is revenge. Well, I'll show you. Guess who's going to win? My candidate's going to win. I'll show you. I'm going to rally the troops. We'll show you what happens when you talk about my candidate that way, or when you talk about me that way. So what's dignity? Dignity is this mutual recognition of the desire to be seen, to be heard, to be listened to be understood. I love the phrase that has become popular over the last few years when they say, I see you. They know you, they understand you, and you have those people in your lives who know you, who see you. You feel safe with them, even in your worst moments, right? They know you, they see you, they treat you with dignity. So contempt, this is our shorthand definition. Contempt is this feeling of disdain or disgust for another person. I see myself above you. As I was reading the Gottmans' work recently, they really align with our thinking on this shorthand. The eye roll is moral superiority. The contempt, they said, the contempt comes from a place of moral superiority. It's not just criticism, which is also one of the four horsemen, but it's criticism with this feeling that I am above you. That's contempt. So when you start to say, I see myself above you, I'm better than you, you are stepping into contempt. Dignity, on the other hand, our shorthand for dignity is, I see myself not above you, but I see myself in you. We believe that dignity is this inherent worth that we all have from birth. In spiritual culture, religious cultures, they have definitions for this, and a lot of them have the same definitions of this inherent worth that we all share because we have this common humanity. So I see myself above you as contempt. I see myself in you as dignity. Donna writes that if indignity, or contempt as we call it, tears us apart, dignity can put us back together again. So let's just everybody practice dignity all the time, and we're good. We're good to go, right? We're done early today. So the difficulty of promoting dignity is that it's hard to maximize what we can't measure. How do I know if I'm doing better? How do I know if I'm speaking with dignity or contempt? I think I know. We saw this hearing in June of 2021 with Representative Emmanuel Cleaver. It was a committee for the modernization of Congress, and they were talking about how to kind of heal some of these polarized discussions and work that was going on in Congress. And he said, there are agencies and organizations that score us on everything we do. And he rattled off all of the scorecards that he's on for whatever issue it was. He said, but no one scores us on decency and civility. So it's easy to come to the conclusion that that's not important. Luckily, we were working on this thing called the Dignity Index while I was watching that committee hearing. And that said, we've got it. Hang on, we're almost there. So the Dignity Index is a scale. It goes from 1 to 8. And it measures the language that we use when we disagree with others, when we're angry, when we're fearful, when we're in major and minor disagreements. It goes from 1 to 8. The bottom side, in fact, I'm going to have one of my friends here help me pass these out. The bottom side of the scale, from 1 to 4, is the contempt side of the scale. And the top side of the scale is the dignity side of the scale. So as Preston is handing these out, Madeline, I want you to look at this, and I'm going to walk you down the scale. I'm going to start in the middle. Because when I start at a 1, which is the lowest side of the scale, people say, I'd never do that. That's not me. Or 2, I would never do that either. 3, I don't think that's me. I'm going to walk you down to see how sometimes we get there unwittingly. So a 4 is the first step into contempt. This is when you start to think, we're better than those people. They don't really belong. They're not one of us. You've already kind of started to use this language of us and them. The next step down the scale is a 3. We're the good people and they're the bad people. It's not us or us and them, it's us versus them. 2 is we're not just the good people and you're the bad people, but those people are evil and they're going to ruin our country if we let them. Campaign, fundraising, emails. Sometimes I've seen that exact language. They're ruining our country, and if you send me $5, I will make sure that doesn't happen. Like every time, I don't know how many $5 I have to send to a candidate to have them stop, ruining the country, but it's, but this is the language. It's designed to invoke fear and anger. We already know anger is powerful. Fear is a very, very strong motivator as well. So when you get down to a 2 and you believe that those people are evil and they're ruining a country that we love, I dare say everyone in this room holds the country very dear. We are patriots. We love our country. I used to be a merit badge counselor for Boy Scouts for years and years and years, citizenship in the country, and I did in the community and in the nation. I was taught from the time I can remember to respect the flag, to do everything I could to strengthen my community. So when you tell me that someone's ruining something that I love so dearly, well, the last avenue of a response here is that they're not even human. It's our moral duty to destroy them before they destroy us. This is a call to violence. This is where genocide happens. And we'll go deeper into this in a moment about what that language looks like and some of the elements of that language. But when you see on the news someone that shows up at Nancy Pelosi's house with a hammer or Justice Kavanaugh's house with a bomb, you're going, how could anyone do that? They're trying to protect the country they love. And the environment around them has been telling them how horrible those people are. Here's another shorthand. When you start to hear or say those people, you know that you've started to divide yourself from our fellow Americans. So let's go to the happy side of the scale. 5 is the other side has a right to be here and a right to be heard. It's their country too. I kind of think of this, it's the first step into dignity. To me, it's a little bit of a neutral dignity because it's like, you live your life, I live mine. I'm going to show you enough dignity that if that's, you have a right to be here too. I'm not really curious about you yet. I'm going to, maybe I'll interact with you, maybe not, but you be you, right? 6 is when you start to look for things you have in common with the other side. You're going to look for those things, those values that you share, the interests that you share. I served for 8 years on local city council. I served for 4 years on our state board of education. I served for 7 years in the governor's office as his education advisor. This is something that good public servants will always start at. I'm going to find out what we have in common, and let's build on that. And that's good politics. This is better politics. When you engage with the other side looking for those values and interests you don't share. What are the things we disagree on? I'm going to be curious about that because I want to find out what brought you to that position. Why do you think so differently from me? And those are the things that we're going to look at when you're at a 7. We added this language just a few months ago. When you're at a 7, you are open to making mistakes. Say, I made a mistake. You're going to admit that you made a mistake. Or you say, I changed my mind on that. When's the last time you heard a public leader say they changed their mind or they made a mistake? It's kind of hard to pull an example out, right? Because if they do, what happens? Their career is over. Their political career is over. Part of what we're trying to do, even with this education, is developing a constituency of people who say, it's okay to say you changed your mind, Representative. Tell me how you got there. And then the top of the scale, this is very aspirational, very beautiful as well. This is when we can say each one of us is born with inherent worth, and so we treat everyone with dignity, no matter what. It's easy to say, I could never do that. You probably do it every day in some form or another. We probably live, if you're like me, anywhere on this scale. I try to keep it 5 and above. I was at a 4 earlier today. I caught myself because we'd like to talk about using this index on ourselves, and we'll talk about that as well. But I really try to stay in that top part. It's hard to do. If it's something that is really, really important to you, or they're attacking someone who is dear to you, man, you just want to go right at the bottom. So it takes practice, and we'll talk about that. So what does this look like? When we treat people with contempt, we're mocking them, we're calling them names, we attack their motives and their character. It's like, oh, he's only doing that because of XYZ. By the way, this isn't just in politics. Think about it in family relationships. Think about it in work or in other organizations that you belong to, and someone says something you disagree with. Oh, they're only doing that because they're going to make a lot of money off of this, right? They're going to assume all this negative intent. We define people on the basis of a single belief. This happens even unbeknownst to us. Those elites, they're the problem. Those woke people, they're the problem. Those MAGAs, they're the problem. I mean, I don't know how many MAGAs you know. You saw the diversity in my family. And when people start to define my kids or my husband or I on the basis of a single belief and say they lump me in with that group, I don't like it. And when they say they hate Democrats, it's like, so you hate my child? No, I really hate Republicans. Okay, so you hate the other 3 of us in our family? Well, no, it's just those Democratic socialists. Okay, tell me which of my family members you hate, because we need to have a conversation. And then we blame them for bad outcomes. This is a little clip from my colleague, Tim Shriver.
You change people by introducing them to their own goodness. It's almost the opposite of what we instinctively do. If I disagree with you, my first set of responses is to attack you, argue against you, embarrass you, expose you, surround you with people that don't agree with you, organize a group against you. And it doesn't work. It doesn't change people. You change.
So when we treat people with dignity, we are declaring our values, our goals. I'm not going to say you're those awful people that are ruining everything. It's like, here's what I want to have happen. Here's what I believe. You're going to discuss facts, decisions, actions, and outcomes. We had this conversation earlier today about some of the things said in the debate last night. You're a liar. I don't agree with your facts. In fact, 3 recent reports have said just the opposite. I'm not mischaracterizing, and I'm not picking on you. I adore you. I don't even know you, and I adore you, right? But there's a way to say things without being accusatory or completely labeling someone. It's hard and it takes practice. But we speak respectfully, we listen carefully, we ask for more information. Tell me more about that. I disagree with that. Tell me how you came to that position. Tell me what I'm not getting. And then we debate the specifics. This is another, well, let me just show you one other thing here. I'm going to show you another colleague. So what if people say, but it's true? What if they really are ruining the country? We pilot tested this in Utah during the 2022 midterms. And there was a day that I called my colleagues and said, I actually think this candidate is ruining the country and I'm working for the Dignity Index. Help, please help me. And so they had to walk me through, it's like, what are the specific things you're concerned about? And the Dignity Index, it doesn't detect truth. There are all kinds of fact-checking services out there, right? We detect contempt. It's different. We want you to ask yourself, are you demonizing your opponents in order to energize your supporters? Are you alarming your supporters, getting them to send you money or hate your opponents? Is there more contempt in the country before or after you have spoken?
Please.
Can you tell the truth without contempt? This is my other colleague who has a co-creator of the Dignity Index and just talks about this so beautifully.
You can make a powerful case and challenge an opponent and hold someone accountable and do it with dignity. And the way that would be done is you're not doing any name calling. That's out. You're not labeling someone. You're not sneering at them. That's gone. And then you take up the criticism in the language of decisions, actions, the outcome of those actions, who gets hurt, and you invite the other person to respond. And if you really want to take it to a higher level, instead of saying just, this is who you are, you move to, this is what you do, and you move better than that to, this is the thing that you did, to ultimately, maybe, this is what we can do together. So if you're challenging someone with dignity, it's more like you're trying to solve a problem than win an argument. So it's not common. We don't see a lot of examples in our culture, but it's absolutely possible. And as we continue our movement, we'll have many more ready examples to show, but absolutely without a question, it is possible to hold someone, to challenge someone and to hold them accountable and still treat them with dignity.
The challenge of treating the other side with dignity, with such serious stakes and serious issues is, can you talk about something that they did or a position that they hold without calling them a bad person, without calling them names, without implying that they are morally deficient?
I want to underscore too, it takes practice. This doesn't, I don't think, comes naturally to most of us. There are, things that we've looked at in previous scores where I've had to call one of my colleagues and say, how could you say this with dignity? Walk me through, help me practice what that would look like. And the more we apply this scale to our own language in our own relationships, I think that gives us the practice opportunities so that we can get used to using that language, that it falls on the dignity side of the scale and not on the contempt side of the scale.
So we're going to give this a try, just a real quick try, and then I'm going to turn the time over to go a little bit more in depth into this. So I'm going to put up a passage. I want you to kind of look at your card, and then I'm going to tell you what we scored that passage as. And I've just got maybe 4 or 5 passages. Here's the first one. This is Senator John McCain, a presidential candidate back in 2008. He said, I've always believed that America offers opportunities to all who have the industry and will to seize it. Senator Obama believes that too. Look at your scale. We scored this a 6. You're looking for those things you have in common, right? I believe this, so does he. This was more recent, earlier this year. It doesn't matter which extreme Republican wins the Iowa caucus today. They all have the same dangerous ideas for our country. This was from the Democratic National Committee. We scored this a 3. We're the good people. They're the bad people. It's us versus them. This one, we the people are obliged to take responsibility ourselves and wipe out this scum. Do not be afraid. Know that anyone whose neck you do not cut will be the one to cut your neck. Yeah, this one's pretty clear, right? This is a one. This quote was from Leon Mugesera, who was serving a life sentence for the Rwandan genocide. Okay, how about this one? The Biden administration is obsessed with creating mountains of federal red tape. Those regulations raise costs for every American consumer. They hamper our ability to compete in the world marketplace. They siphon time and investment, et cetera, et cetera. We scored this one a 4. Let's apply the, but it's true. But what if that's true, right? What if there's evidence to show that the regulations are raising costs, that they're hampering our ability to compete? All you have to do is say, the Biden administration's regulations are raising costs for every American consumer. I'm not going to apply a moral judgment to you. And what happens now when you're criticizing perhaps the Biden administration and your friends who are Democrats who own small businesses are going, I actually agree with you on that. That's true. I own a small business. This is true. But when you say, you know, your president, their administration is obsessed with creating mountains of red tape, you've lost who could be your allies. Okay, last one. I've sat with condemned men on death row. I've spoken with former police officers who have admitted inflicting the cruelest torture. I have visited child soldiers who have committed acts of nauseating depravity. And I've recognized in each of them a depth of humanity that was a mirror of my own. That's an 8. That's Desmond Tutu in his book on forgiveness. And he didn't say, it's okay, you know, we're going to let them off the hook because, you know, I recognize their humanity. It's like, no, you're going to prison. You're going to account for your crimes, but I see a little piece of me in you. So what you just experienced is similar to what our student group of coders experienced as we were validating this instrument, the Dignity Index, during the 2022 midterms. And again, some of those people are here today. In a moment, you're going to hear from a couple of them. I'm going to skip through one video that didn't make the cut first. What they've taught us, she's here in person. Like, you're getting a real live deal today. Yeah. They taught us quickly about 3 effects that I'm only going to touch on because they're going to tell you a little bit more about it. They said, you know, there's this thing that's happening to us. We're starting to see ourselves in this. And I'm going to let them tell you about it. They also said, you know, the more I learn about this, I realize that there's something I can do about it. I don't just have to stand by anymore and say everything's, you know, going down the tubes and oh well. There is some agency that came from that. And then this electrifying effect that the index is triggering a demand among people. We have spoken to so many groups across the country, different groups, school boards, teachers, corporations, global corporations, small county commissions, mayors. We're working in governor's offices. People say, I want that. I mean, this is the time. People are hungry for another way of thinking or believing. In fact, I have a friend who's a superintendent, and he just wrote the most poignant email to me. He said, Tammy, I saw this presentation. He said, I'm tired of hating people. I'm tired of thinking there's not a way out of this contentious mess in our school boards. He's a very kind and loving person, right? But he is just at the end of his rope, really. So I'm going to introduce our next. Oh, actually, Preston, can I play this one? Or do you just want to talk about it? You have no idea what you
The effects we've seen from the Dignity Index are the electrifying effect, the mirror effect, and the agency effect. The electrifying effect really is the passion that I want more, that I want to be a part of this, I want to champion this, really the energy that comes from seeing the index and dignity as a solution to what we're facing here. The mirroring effect is when you've spent some time with the index and you're not just using the index to look at somebody else. You're saying, how am I contributing to contempt? You hear something that you said or you receive contempt. Someone's on you, whether it's in an email or a social media post or in your comments, or they're saying it to you directly. and you're feeling the emotion of wanting to respond with contempt. But then in the back of your head, the dignity index is pushing you up the scale. It's saying, oh man, I want to be a 4, a 5, a 6, a 7. How do I respond to this in that way? And that last point is that agency effect is now, okay, now I need to make a decision. I need to start using my agency and making the choice on a daily basis to use dignity. But if we can at least shift the culture over that tipping point where more people are choosing dignity than they are contempt, then I think we'll actually see some of the solutions that we know that this can create, and our democracy will be healthier because people will be able to say what they think, and that's huge for a democracy.
Okay, so I am the warm-up act. Why I put this last slide up, I'd like to have my colleagues come up. They're going to take over from here. You're halfway there. But again, to reiterate this point that I made at the beginning, when we use contempt, it's hard to see it. But then when we see that we're using contempt, it's hard to use it. So we believe that the Dignity Index helps us see it. Preston, Madeline, Megan, whoever's up.
One of you.
Someone.
So I was one of the original student coders in the 2022 pilot project. And I remember coming into this project and being so excited because I looked at the Dignity Index and I felt like it was this tool I could use to hold people accountable for destroying the country. And I was like, this is going to go right into those political pundits. Like, they're the worst and I'm going to get them. I remember one morning after being trained on the index, we were coding all of these 2022 campaigns and political passages. And I was going through my typical routine. I was listening to my favorite political commentator on YouTube. And I remember he was talking about current events and he was talking at a 5, and I thought that was fantastic. But then he started talking about senators from the other party. He started characterizing them. It was at a 4, and then he went to a 3, a 2, and I remember him saying, they are pigs. And I was taken aback. I thought to myself, wow, this is contempt, and it's nasty contempt at that. And the funny thing is, I had always known that he had used some pretty charged language, but I excused it. Contempt didn't really feel like that big of a problem if I agreed with the underlying policy. Because if you ruffle a few feathers at the end of the day, you're right. This morning was a little different for me. I couldn't ignore the contempt anymore. I felt like he could say the position without the contempt. He could use dignity. This is what we call the mirror effect. And I will tell you all that if I had known that I was signing up to basically score myself, I don't know if I would have signed up. It's very funny because I always felt like that was an other person problem, not me problem, but now it's a lot of fun. So this was a very impactful moment for me, and it turns out I wasn't the only one. After one of our sort of presentations, I can't remember, it was like a newsmaker breakfast, I walked out with Preston, and we were both like, this is like pretty different. Like, this experience was different than any other bridge builder we had seen. It felt like we were able to express our beliefs and our feelings. And we didn't have to, it wasn't necessarily just about the common ground. It was that 7 level of curiosity. And so we decided to start a student group. So Preston and I, we are co-founders of the Students for Dignity because we just couldn't give it up. And we now work on this full time. But ironically, we had known that we had different political beliefs, and we had learned over time that we have very different political beliefs. We started out agreeing on dignity, and then suddenly we're trying to figure each other out. And it's like, oh my gosh, how do we both agree on this one thing and disagree on everything else? So it's kind of this little testament to that. We want to take you through a few scoring exercises, kind of show you the process that created this self-awareness, and also something that someone who's very conservative and someone who is incredibly liberal, we can agree on it. So I'm going to show you guys how to score, and I know we're talking a lot about politics, so I want to bring it back to the culture. I think this movie is iconic. I'm going to show you as a clip. We're going to score it in a moment, but for now, just have a listen.
It was horrible. Why?
Come on, Sasha. Give it to her. Destroy Barbie. Okay, Barbie. Let's do this. You've been making women feel bad about themselves since you were invented.
I think you have that the wrong way around.
You represent everything wrong with our culture. Sexualized capitalism, unrealistic physical ideals.
No. You're describing something stereotypical. Barbie is so much more than that.
Look at yourself.
I am technically stereotypical Barbie.
You set the feminist movement back 50 years. You destroy girls' innate sense of worth, and you are killing the planet with your glorification of rampant consumerism.
No, I'm supposed to help you and make you happy and powerful.
Oh, I am powerful. And until you showed up here and declared yourself Barbie, I hadn't thought about you in years, you fascist.
You're so cute. All right, so all of you should have had a packet that looks like this. If you were to open it up, you will see the full scoring guide in this beautiful card stock, colorful bubbles. So you'll see our contempt 1 through 4. You'll see all the quotes and characteristics that match the mindset of a 1, 2, 3, and so on. You can also find the differentiation, which can be very helpful when you're trying to score something. So take a look at this, and I'm going to have you guys score that Barbie clip. So there are a lot of moments of contempt here. You set the feminist movement back 50 years, and you destroy girls' innate sense of self-worth. But I want you guys to focus on this one line. You represent everything wrong with our culture. So what I'm going to have you guys do is score independently. I'm going to give you about 30 seconds to do that. And then I'm going to have you come back as a table and have a discussion about scores. All right. Let's go ahead and start going around your tables and saying what you scored it, and then we can have a discussion if there's any discrepancies.
It does need a purpose on that.
Oh, and when we come back, I'm going to have a representative at each table hold up one of the color cards on what your consensus score is.
Okay, so you go like this.
Sorry.
But
at least the other side is an existential threat.
right, I mean, I don't feel like that one quite meets it, but I'd be willing to hear if you thought that it did. I definitely feel the fascist comment kind of moves towards it too.
Yeah.
But
And the fascist might be an existential threat.
right, but I think you're only supposed to go off of that
Is
one.
that everything wrong with our culture?
Also, however, she's saying our culture as opposed to my culture, and you're not part of my culture. So that's why I was thinking for.
That's true.
You know, you are that statement.
That could be a 2 as well.
All right,
us
try and
scoring
start wrapping up
separation.
those scoring discussions and come to a
Okay, wait, there's something about differentiating.
Okay.
The 2 says those are evil people trying to run us, they're an existential threat. 3 says those are bad people trying to hurt us. 2 is us or them, 3 is us versus them.
What did she say to us? You go ahead and make a call. Can you hold it up for us instead of those people that don't really belong? I mean, wrong with our culture. I'm going to stand with 4.
Alright.
I see it. We have a 2 over the 1. Can you see it?
All right, everybody, come to one score so we can discuss it. So I want to see everybody's score. This side,
Great.
Awkward dude.
we have a 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. What do you guys have?
Tail, we get a 4.
Yeah.
We got a 4. You're a 4.
A little squeak of a 4.
And a 2. Oh, a 2 and a 5. Okay.
2.5.
That's funny because in the original project that actually happened a few times where we'd have these huge differences in scores and you'd look at them and you'd be like, can you please tell me what you saw? Because it's so different. So I want to hear from a 2. I kind of want to hear the 4. And I like the middle, so we'll hear from the middle. Go ahead.
So I personally was thinking it was a 3 because it attacks the moral character of the other side. But then somebody brought up an interesting point saying that the wrong with our culture creates a separation of us or them, not necessarily us versus them. And so that kind of made me more agree with that 2 side. So that's why we all settled on the 2, except for we have 1 4 holdout over here.
I love purple.
I could be persuaded. I mean, yeah, I'm not absolute on the 4. I was unsure if the our culture included Barbie or did not include Barbie. So our culture, you are representing what is wrong with our culture.
Okay.
So she's part of our culture. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And she's not actually. There's no indication in here that she's an actual threat. So
That's like a,
those were my points.
I like it. I love it. Okay, how about our 2.5?
Well, we had total consensus except for one person who thought it was a 2.5.
And then there was a very unbraver angels attack on me.
Became us versus him.
Take me 4.
Then we ultimately wanted to honor you by.
I love it.
I guess I didn't get quite to 2 because I didn't hear in what she said this kind of you are completely other and need to be destroyed, one step toward the one of, anybody like you should be destroyed, the genocidal one. So anyway.
Which we agreed Weird Barbie did experience, the one with the hair cut off and was broken. Right?
That's a great point. We could do a complete Barbie theme, which, Preston, we're going to do that. Not a fan of Barbie. So you would score it a 3 then?
No, I was at the 2.5. Everybody else.
Oh, 2.5. Okay, you're splitting the score. Love that. So we actually scored it a 3.
No.
And the reason we scored it a 3 is because we felt like Sasha's the good person and Barbie's the bad person. It's kind of an us versus them. And we didn't pick up on the our culture separation. So that's interesting. But what I love about scoring is that you can have these disagreements and learn that perspective from somewhere else. Because it's pretty subjective.
Also, I don't know how if this differentiates anything. She's not saying when you do this, you make me feel a certain way, or your this view is representative of something. She's saying your personhood represents
you.
Like there's nothing about you that isn't this evil.
Yeah.
So that felt very absolute and more contemptuous to me.
I love that. Thank you for saying that. All right. Do you guys want to do another one? Yeah. Perfect. All right. So we're going to move over into more of these political ones. So can I get someone to read this out loud?
I think it's important not to try to make a lot of cheap sound bites and call your opponents names and belittle them. What I've learned is that I truly think most people, now there's some people are never going to agree with me on a lot of issues, but most people, we can agree on what the problems are. And what we have to do is we may not agree on their solutions, and that's where we have to have a dialogue and figure out how to get things done. But you don't start that dialogue by calling somebody a nasty name.
All right. So look at it, give it a score, and then we're going to come back, discuss with your groups, and we'll do this again.
I know,
I like that it's not like, oh,
We can agree on what the problems are, right?
And sure, the first part is saying like, I don't want to do this.
So in that case, it's that's more of that's a 5. I was thinking, or a 6. I didn't quite hear what you were arguing.
oh, I was just thinking it was a 6 because they mention about we need to have dialogue. We have to talk to people. Yeah, we need to figure out what the values are. So it seemed like it's a 6 to me. That was just my gut feel.
And it's assuming a commonality at the beginning. We may not agree on the solution, but there is we agree on what the problems are. Not we have to convince each other of what the problems are. That already exists.
Like I like these.
All right,
these
start
examples.
wrapping
We
up
don't
the
let our disagreements keep us from
conversation, come to
cooperating on the things we
consensus.
agree on. We have more in common than we think. Yeah, like the acknowledgement. Like we're not gonna agree on everything, but like, yeah, I'm not sure if it's a like open to changing my mind. Although, Karen, I'm curious if you.
Oh no!
Just as we have to have a dialogue and figure out how to things different. Yeah.
Are you? Is there a group of you? So it's not one person.
No,
who
it's
just
not
scored,
one.
is
So
it?
I feel
Yeah.
like obviously there is disagreements.
All right.
Even this small group, so it's definitely
Consensus scores.
You fight, you arm wrestle over, light the candles.
obviously we're the
and then-
dignity index. We gotta fight each
Very
other.
good. And everyone hold them up.
Scores, hold them up. Scores, hold them up. See those scores?
I like this side of
You could put one
Cool.
Like, I'm holding
All right, so we have 2 7s, 3 6s, and a 5. So, can I hear from someone who scored it a 7?
Would you like
Okay, we can go. Our group was torn between a 6 and a 7, so we were taking a look at the differentiating 6 and 7 traits, I guess. And it said here for 7, it doesn't bother a 7 to hear their views challenged and criticized when they run into conflict. They keep listening. So that's what leaned us more towards the 7 versus the 6.
Okay, I like it. How about a 5?
Yeah,
At this table with 5, who wants to comment?
We're below.
Well, we had all varying scores here, and we actually settled on a 5 because it kind of landed between where we all were.
Yeah. This was the 6 side of the table, and that's the 4 side of the table over there. So we took an average.
Can I hear about the 4?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Sure.
She and I.
Yeah, I thought that as I read it, I read it as speaking as if this person is better than those people. I thought I read some passive aggressive in there with the dashes and all that. Yeah.
Also, starting out with a negative. Like, don't call them names and don't do this and don't. So it's sort of like setting up a conflict in a way.
Interesting. Can you pull out one of the passive aggressive? Is it the first line, or I want to see?
I think it is again, like she said, I think it's important not to try to make a lot of cheap sound bites. Like, I'm telling you what we shouldn't do, but I'm going to do that. And then what I've learned is that I truly think most people, now there's some people are never going to agree with me on a lot of these issues, but most people, we can agree. So that's the way I read that. And again, as a reader, that's the way I would read it.
Thank you for sharing. I have never picked that up before. So this is why I love scoring too. So I'm like, what did you think? Okay, let's also hear from one of our 6s. Just raise your hand.
And it doesn't say you, because that's more of a brave angels thing, not to say you. Talk about the position. Now that I reread it, then it lays it on pretty thick in the first sentence with cheap sound bites. That makes me rethink it a little towards 5, actually. But, I had the recency effect being a psychologist, and I was thinking more of the later sentences. being, that most people have a lot in common and have something to offer. So forgetting a lot of the first sentence, we saw it as a 6.
Okay, interesting. So, our team scored it. Do you want to?
Oh, I was gonna say we didn't notice anything about the ability to listen. I think the passage emphasizes dialogue, but the shift between a 6 and a 7, in my quick reading and what we discussed a little bit, was that 7s are willing to take criticism, are curious, are open to being challenged and potentially being wrong, and there wasn't enough evidence in there to lean to a 7 for us.
Give that up. So, our team scored it a 6. And the main reason is because we can agree on what the problems are. And so we felt like this is trying to come to a place of like this common ground. And so that's, at least for me, that's my explanation for it. So we are out of time on this scoring exercise, but Preston is going to take you guys through some passages from the debate last night. And we're going to do some live scoring, so there's no right answer.
Okay. One thing I want to say really quickly, to set this up, like Madeline said, these are fresh, so I won't be showing you like a score that we gave it yet. So we'll be looking at these fresh, and then after, I'm just going to ask really quickly for what we think scores are, and then after, what I want your team to deliberate on instead of what the consensus score is. I want you to consider how you could say, if it's a contempt passage, I want you to consider how you would maybe say it in a different way, but improve on the dignity index scale. So I'll kind of reiterate that when we get to the passages. One thing that I want to introduce this as well of, I know we showed you like passages, this is what our team scored it. A lot of times we say there's not like a correct answer. There's a right way to score. There's a proper way to score, and are you tying the language of the passage to the language that's in the index? But what was so amazing about the projects that we've applied this to, like Madeline said, she's very on the left, I'm very on the right. We both came into this project and we're kind of with a group of 20 students who were all over the place too. It was amazing to see how often you would be on a team with somebody completely different than you, but you could see the contempt. You're like, oh, I know that's my side, but I can see it. It's there. Oh, I can see the dignity in your side. I got to remember that, and vice versa. That's what's, I think, so powerful about this project. So, okay, this is our first little quote. I want you to take a look at it really quickly. 2 seconds to read it. You can just start shouting out scores when you think, let's just put a score on it, and then we'll get as a table and try to improve it. What do we think? Any thoughts? Scores? You can just throw it out. You ever thinking the tissue? Yeah, it is.
Reach out. I want chairs.
Okay, who wants to say why they think it's a 2? Danger.
See, we're in the country.
Yeah.
There could be you're calling for him to be killed. The question is implying that there's some kind of great consequence for it, some kind of evil consequence for it.
Yeah. The bloodbath, like, wow, strong language, right? Okay, I know he's not like really making a policy statement, but let's say what this speaker was trying to say, make a comment on what's going to happen to the country if the opposition loses or opposition wins. How would you say this more dignified? Yeah.
If he loses again, there could be civil unrest.
Yeah.
It's violent.
I would say that's pretty neutral, right? I know the call of civil unrest sometimes contextually can be a little contemptuous, but just on a blanket statement. Any other ideas? You can discuss it with your tables too if you want to.
I am concerned about the state of civility if the candidate loses again.
Yeah. Any other thoughts? Yes.
I don't know if this is like 2 of a 4, but if he loses again, we're going to have to really work together to find solutions.
Well, yeah.
I think we're
taking it to the dignity side.
I don't know if it was going too far, but
can't go too far up the scale. You can always hope.
Never too much dignity.
In this case, I think they're trying to convey that there really could be violence, and this is one. If it's true, what do you say? How do you explain it? There's never been an election that he's acknowledged losing at any level, and I'm afraid that if the outcome shows that he loses again, that there could be real violence. Is that contemptuous? I mean, it's true.
Right.
I mean,
well, and that's, truth is an interesting thing, right? Conceptually. And I think we had this discussion not too long ago too of like what we heard last night, right? How many times we're like, he's a liar. He's a liar. Is that inherently contemptuous? Maybe. It makes, context may matter. The way you say it may matter. Just calling someone, trying to point out someone who may be espousing things that you don't believe to be true. There's got to be a way we can say that. That's at least a 5. Maybe we're not saying that you should be a 6 or a 7 or 8 in that moment, but we got to say it in a way that's at least a 5. Maybe point out those decisions, those outcomes, say, listen, the facts that I understand would presume that what you're saying is not the case, it's not true. Maybe we have alternative facts, I don't know. But, again, we're not a truth detector. Truth can sometimes be subjective, right? Based off of facts, opinions, where you're coming from. So really trying to get into the speaker's mindset, when the Dignity Index, you're looking at the speaker, who are they speaking to, and what's the underlying conflict when it comes to scoring, right? So the speaker, like, what do they understand? What do I know as to be true, right? What we know, too, about sometimes discussions are about how do we get to truth, right? Well, what we know from this project is if you're leading with contempt, you will never have a conversation with somebody where you get to the bottom of what's true, because the contempt gets in the way. If you can lead with dignity, you have a chance, right? Let's look at a couple more. I know we're going to be close on time, but let's see. I'm going to skip this one if that's okay. Okay, quick scores. I think Democrats are radicals, not the Republicans. Probably below 3. I'm thinking 3. Yeah, we're all thinking 3. Okay. Maybe let's not upgrade that one. Let's see. Okay, let's go with this one. Okay, China's going to own us if you keep allowing them to do what they're doing as a country. They're killing us as a country, Joe. You can't let that happen. You're destroying our country, right? Pretty contemptuous. You're destroying our country. What are you doing? Okay, how could we rephrase this where let's pretend I'm Donald Trump. I know I'm a conservative and like that, but and I'm speaking. How could I say this and address China policy, but do it in a way that's not contemptuous?
I wonder if there could be a way to say it that's like, I don't know, Joe, I've been there. I was president. There's a lot of things on your plate. I feel that China should be more of a priority. What can we do to move forward?
Sure. I think that's great. Great. You should warm it up to sell. Any other thoughts? Yes, go here and then here.
I would say something like China. China is a significant trade and economic and military adversary, and the way that your policies are moving us is not improving things. We need to do better.
Yeah.
We need to do better.
Love that.
What I see China doing to us frightens me, and what frightens me about that is that it seems like they are getting to be too big an adversary, and I feel it might be a danger to our country and may end up having to go to war. And so I would like to see us take steps to prevent that.
Yeah.
Nice.
I already even you saying that to me, I'm like, let's figure this out. Like, I'm ready to work with you, right?
But what I did is I said, I am afraid.
Right.
And because we come together in fear.
Right.
That's where we meet.
Yeah.
And so I talked about my fear.
Right. Sometimes it's hard, like we've talked about, we have to practice. Sometimes we don't always see the contempt we use. That's why hopefully that's some of these exercises have done that. Before I introduce our next I just want to say, we came into this project, like Madeline said, formed this group coming from completely different places. Tammy talks about the Gottman research where, we eye roll. I remember the first time that I realized, I'm the problem, part of that, we had a tagline on one of our slide decks, and the tagline was dignity, a foundation of a new patriotism. And I'm like, yeah, right, patriotism. And Madeline's like, wait, hold on. Like, let's talk about the concept of patriotism. And I have to admit, in that moment, I rolled. I was like, like, are you kidding me? You're saying, like, am I about to have to explain to this woke why I love my country? And Madeline sat down and she said, no. Oh. She said, like, let's have a conversation about this. We, in that moment, and Madeline will admit that she thought of similar things. She's like, oh no, right, Jeff. In that moment, we decided to apply the Dignity Index. I said, Madeline, help me understand why that phrase is complicated with people in this country right now. Because I grew up, it's innate in me, the way I grew up. Love of country, all that, explained to me. She said, well, this is, explained it, broke it down, we didn't get contemptuous. I was like, oh, wow. And then I started talking, and she was like, oh, so there's a large swath of conservatives that aren't radical right, people who are using this and weaponizing that term and everything like that. And we came to this breakthrough of understanding. We didn't walk away with the same now concept of patriotism. I'm not saying we're agreeing maybe on what that term is or what those concepts mean, but I understand her. We know each other. We aren't just colleagues because of it. We're becoming friends because of it. So there's power in this, and I appreciate the time. I'm going to turn it over to Megan, who's going to walk you guys through a couple scenarios. So thank you.
You guys have been doing great, by the way. I just think I'm extremely impressed. We've been talking a lot about contempt, and let's be honest, it is a little heavy. But the more we learn about contempt, the more we can overcome it. So we just have to keep that mindset going. That yes, it can be hard, but we can do hard things in order to become better. When we face a disagreement or a difference, we can respond with dignity, or we can respond with contempt. And so that just depends on how we either reduce the separation or increase the separation. And so, let's see. It's kind of all spelled out for us here. And so we see ourselves in the other person, or we can see ourselves above the other person. We can engage with the other person, or we can avoid the other person. And we can see the other person for who they are, or we can pin a label on who they are. And so these are the choices that we face when we hit a difference or a disagreement. And so one of the ways to overcome contempt is with dignity. And Tammy kind of mentioned this earlier and went through it a little bit. So when you put dignity side by side with contempt, dignity is always going to look a little bit better. And so now I'm going to show you some examples of dignity. And some of these examples are probably going to look a little familiar to you. So I want you to kind of just focus in on them.
Are you just going to keep going, or am I going to get
Yes, because I'm not finished.
Answer my question.
You know what? I kind of feel like I need to go to break right now.
No, let me.
No. Maybe.
No, she's ready to answer the
question. Because I can't hear anybody saying anything.
It's hard when you're being interrupted.
I know. So maybe we need to just figure out how we do this again. Let's have this break and let's figure out how we're going to make this work. We'll be right back.
And I want to personally thank Caitlin Clark for lifting up our sport. She carried a heavy load for our sport. So Caitlin Clark, if you're out there, you are one of the GOATs of our games, and we appreciate you.
When someone presents you with something, quite often, I think the average person, myself included, gets offended and brings up our own self-righteousness. And I need to now prove that I'm right and you're wrong.
You should be able to understand where other people are coming from without fully agreeing with them. And you should be able to understand that people can arrive at different conclusions because of their own life experiences.
The starting point is curiosity. If you preach at someone, they might be defensive. If you come to them with non-judgmental curiosity, just trying to learn, they open up their hearts and their minds to you and they give it to you.
Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe my way of thinking is incorrect. I consider, I think it's pretty polarizing. When I talk about this, it upsets a lot of people. So maybe my worldview was wrong and maybe yours is right.
So heated.
Yeah, where it looks like you caught Big Red off guard a little bit.
As he said, I got him with a cheap shot.
You know what? He just wants to be on the field and he wants to play. And so there's nobody I get better than I get him. He's a competitive kid, and he loves to play, and he makes me feel young.
I wasn't sure how I was going to feel in court and seeing him, but honestly, seeing him, my heart just breaks for him. He has a wife sitting behind him. He has a family sitting behind him, and his life is turned upside down from all of this too.
I hear a lot of heavy on the dignity side, right? And so those are just some really good examples and expressions of dignity. Breaking up an argument, or seeing in the aftermath of, what happens at a championship basketball game, or being able to reflect when you disagree with someone. And so those are all great examples that we see in our everyday lives, and that's just really important to kind of digest. And I know oftentimes we say that we try to recognize the contempt and dignity that we see in media. And so this is media. So you are able to pick them out. And so when you see them now, you're going to be able to say, you know what, I didn't realize that. But now I'm watching this clip of Whoopi, or I'm watching this, podcast, listening to this podcast, or seeing this sports commentator say this about this athlete or this, coach. So you really are able to start to identify it through a different lens, which is extremely important. But now we are going to focus on how we can recognize dignity in our own lives and in those political disagreements, because let's be honest, that is something that we pretty much face on a regular and daily basis. So I'm going to give you a scenario. All right, here's the scenario. You're excited to talk about the most recent debate with your friends, i.e. yesterday. One friend unexpectedly lashes out with a heated response about a candidate that you support. It feels a little tense, and you're not exactly sure what you should do. And so now what you're going to do is you're going to use the same scoring guide that you used to score the Barbie video with Madeline. And I want you to look at a 4. We're going to go through a few of them. But look at a 4 first, and look at the quotes and the traits that are a part of that mindset. How would you use that to respond to this scenario? So you can obviously, speak with one another at your tables and just kind of brainstorm. If I was at a 4, if we were at a 4, how would I respond to this? So I'll give you 30 seconds of good conversation, then we'll come together. I'll pick somebody. So go ahead.
I'm not sure.
No, I think she's not looking for it. What would your response be if it wasn't
roll your eyes,
I guess I'd
That's
have
it. I'll get to
to.
say next.
I mean, we've probably all been talking to other people about the debate last night, right? And I've been talking to a lot of Reds, and they've been great conversations. But I guess as somebody, I don't know,
Somebody that's going to share out for us here in the front. Can you repeat that one more time?
Yeah, we said a 4 might say, you would say that.
You would say that. Okay. Any other 4 example? Anybody want to? Yes.
Okay. I can see where your bias is.
I can see where your bias is. Okay. That's good. All right. So now we're going to take it to, I'm sorry. Did somebody have Chris go? Oh, yes.
I was going to say I'd roll my eyes.
Oh. Of course you would.
I'd start with that.
It's a nonverbal 4, right? A nonverbal 4.
Straight to the divorce.
Yeah, right. All right, let's kick it up to a 5. So look at the 5, look at those traits and quotes. How would you use that to respond to this scenario? So we're moving up the scale just one more notch.
Yeah, I think I was not clear on what the yeah. I think
What do you think?
Yeah.
Okay, we're ready. We have one over here. Yes, please share out.
I'd probably just stand up like this and say, buddy, tell us more, say more. And I would do it with, I hope, some humor. I hope.
Yes. Okay. So engaging with the other person, asking them to give you a little bit more about, how it is that they're feeling. I like that. Here?
We see it differently. Explain to me how you got to that conclusion.
Yes, I like that. And you're engaging now. So now you're taking the opportunity to kind of like try and listen and get a little bit more information and not just going what they initially said off face value. All right, so now we're gonna kick it up even higher. So we're gonna jump to a 7 actually. Yeah, somebody said, oh. So let's look at those quotes and traits of a 7. How would you respond to this scenario on a 7 on the scale? Using the index. Oh, your hand is going up really fast, so I love that you. Please share, and while others are thinking, please share.
Oh my gosh, could I be wrong? Well, tell me more.
Okay, so you're asking for more engagement. Tell me more. Anybody else?
How did you get there?
Can you guys say what you said out loud? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I said acknowledging the person, so saying like, it seems like you have a really negative opinion about this candidate. Can you tell me why you feel that way?
Okay. Yes. So I mean, obviously at a 7, you're kicking it up even more, and you want to hear what the other person has to say. You're taking the opportunity and the time to hear for them to tell you more. You're not just, oh yes, sir.
I would respond to their energy. This sounds like this is very important to you. I'd like to hear more.
Yes, yes. And that's showing a little bit more of the empathy. Yeah, that you are concerned, that you care, you want to hear what they have to say.
But at the same time, you're recognizing their emotion. Say, but if you want to have a dialogue about this, I would, we need to bring it down a little bit. And to be able to, so you can you still kind of challenge like the way in which they're approaching you, coming at you a little hot.
Yeah, and I guess it really does, because it says it's a heated response and the person lashes out. So being able, like you said, to take that time to bring the energy down so that you can both have that really important conversation, even though, your tensions could be a little high, but it's all in tone as well. It's not what you say, it's how you say it.
I found that I've just been doing this last year or so that when I pay attention to people's energy, it does bring it down.
Yes.
Whenever we're curious, it's impossible for us to be upset or in negative. We come into being grounded in the present moment, and our energy changes. And that invites that then from the other person. Not always.
Yeah, it shows the other person that you care and that you're interested in what they have to say. And so that does sometimes bring down that negative energy level. Ooh, a lot of hands. And then we're going to wrap it up, but yes.
I just want to acknowledge that it's really hard when somebody comes at you in a really negative way to bring ourselves up to a 7. I mean, it's here we're doing it, but I'm thinking about times when people might just really come at me and I feel very attacked. So it takes a great deal of
restraint
to start thinking about responding to them in a different way.
Yeah. One last comment.
I similarly was curious. I think maybe a lot of people heard my Israel-Palestine one-to-one conversation, and I know that this doesn't have to do with the debate, but when something feels a bit more culturally personal, are there recommendations into how to have guardrails to navigate that? Because I get scared even now entering conversations, not with like Randy, but if I'm at a dinner and someone tells me that Palestinians are like animals, I'm going to be uncomfortable. So, you know, I don't know if there's like recommendations.
Yeah, and we're going to do Q&A, so that's actually a great segue into it. And I'm going to let Tammy.
The Q&A.
Yeah.
Another group in here, but we are building some of those skill builders. On the back of the card, we have some very rudimentary ones. That one, I would say you would regulate and then debate. You take your breath and you learn some of these practices. We will be adding those to our website. We are out of time. You can see we are so passionate about this. We could do this all day. And hopefully you have seen a new dimension to the language that we use. If you look on the back of your hand, or right here in the center of your handout, if you enjoy doing this, if you have a group, maybe your Braver Angels group, and would like to continue doing this type of activity with each other, scan the QR code and we can help you set up a little group. We have used this term many times, the dignity movement. We're starting a dignity movement. You're now officially part of the dignity movement. So welcome to the movement. Now your job is to go find someone else to bring into the movement. Our time is gone. We are going to be hanging around. If they don't need the room, we'll stay here. Otherwise, you can catch us in the hallway. We've got buttons on, pins on. You can catch us anywhere on campus. Thank you so much for having us, and go fight. No fight. Go and win.